Welcome back to another night of chilling stories. Tonight, we're diving deep into the wilderness, where civilization ends and something else begins. These are true accounts from park rangers, contractors, and outdoor workers who encountered things that defy explanation. Things that lurk in the shadows of our deepest forests. Before we begin, if you enjoy these stories, please hit that like button and subscribe. Your support means everything and helps me continue bringing you these terrifying tales. Now, turn off the lights, settle in, and prepare yourself for what lies ahead in the darkness. Story 9, The Night Stalker of Appalachia. The Appalachian Mountains have always been full of legends, ghosts, spirits, and creatures that wander after dark. But for one family in a quiet part of West Virginia, the stories became horrifyingly real. In the fall of 1994, the Henderson family, Tom, his wife Marie, and their teenage daughter Abby, moved into a small house on the edge of a wooded ridge. They loved the peace and silence. But that silence didn't last. It started with sounds at night. Branches snapping, heavy footsteps circling the property, and something tapping on the windows after midnight. Tom thought it was a bear, but the tracks left behind were too large, and shaped like human feet. Each morning, they found claw marks on the porch railing, deep enough to splinter the wood. One night, Marie woke to the sound of breathing right outside the bedroom window. She turned on the lamp, and saw a face. Pale, stretched, and hollow-eyed. It blinked once, then vanished into the dark. Tom began keeping a rifle by the bed. But every time he went outside to check, the forest seemed empty. Yet they could feel something watching from the tree line. After 2 weeks of terror, a local cryptozoologist, Dr. Alan Keene, came to investigate. He found strange patterns scratched into the soil, circles connected by symbols he couldn't explain. "This thing is territorial," he warned. "You've built your home on its path." That night, the family heard the attic creak above them. When Tom climbed the ladder, he found long, muddy handprints smeared across the beams. Something had been inside the house. The Hendersons fled the next morning, leaving everything behind. When police returned days later, they found the furniture overturned, claw marks on the walls, and a message scratched into the kitchen door. "You saw me." Story 10, RV Horror, The Highway Follower. Jessica and Paul were living their dream, traveling across America in their RV, filming their adventures for their small YouTube channel. For the first month, it was perfect. Until they noticed the black van. It first appeared in Arizona, following a few car lengths behind them. Then again in New Mexico, parked across from their RV at a rest stop. By the time they reached Texas, they were sure it was the same van. The driver's face was always hidden behind tinted glass. Jessica tried recording it, but whenever she did, her camera would glitch and shut off. One night, parked at a quiet desert rest area, they heard footsteps around the RV. Paul looked out the window and froze. The black van was parked only a few feet away. Its engine wasn't running, but faint static came from its open driver's window. Then, 3 knocks on their RV door. Slow. Measured. Paul shouted, "Who's there?" Silence. The knocks came again. Louder. Jessica whispered, "Don't open it." They sat in the dark until dawn. When they finally looked outside, the van was gone, but on the side of their RV, written in dust, were the words, "Nice video." They stopped traveling after that. Months later, a detective called Paul. An abandoned black van had been found deep in the desert. Inside were dozens of photos of RVs, and one folder labeled Jessica and Paul. Story 11, The Park Ranger's Protocol. There are official protocols for park rangers, the ones in the manuals, the ones they teach you in training. And then there are the unofficial protocols. The ones senior rangers only share after dark, over coffee, when you've earned their trust. Ranger Eli Turner had been on duty for 9 years in Grand Teton National Park when he heard about these secret rules. They weren't written down, but everyone knew them. Never follow a child's voice after sunset. If you see a second sun rising in the forest, look away. If you find a trail that isn't on the map, don't take it twice. Eli didn't believe any of it, until the night he broke rule number 1. He was patrolling near the northern ridge when he heard a child crying. "Help me," the voice said. "I'm lost." He followed it deep into the trees, his flashlight cutting through fog. The crying stopped suddenly. Then, from behind him, came the same voice, but closer. He turned, and his light fell on a small figure crouched in the leaves. It wasn't a child. Its limbs were too long, its face smooth where its mouth should be. When it stood, it towered over him, head tilted, breathing in short, sharp gasps. Eli ran until he reached his truck. The radio crackled, and a voice whispered through the static. Rule number 1. Eli turned in his resignation the next day. The logbook he left behind had only one note scrawled at the bottom. The rules keep us alive. Story 12, The Beast of Black River. It was early spring when Officer Daniel Rhodes was called out to investigate a series of strange animal attacks along the Black River Reserve in northern Montana. Locals said coyotes were the cause, but the bite marks didn't match. The wounds were too wide, the claws too deep. Daniel was used to strange calls, missing hikers, illegal hunters, even the occasional bear scare, but this felt different. The reports all came from one place, a dense stretch of woods known as Devil's Hollow, a place most rangers avoided once the sun dipped behind the trees. He arrived just before sunset. The forest was unnervingly still. No birds, no crickets, just the sound of the river crawling through the valley. He found the remains of a deer near the bank, its rib cage crushed as if something had squeezed it. He crouched down and measured one of the tracks in the mud. It was huge, almost 12 inches long, with 5 claw marks that curved inward, like a human hand. He radioed it in, but the signal broke with static. Then came the smell, wet earth mixed with something rotten. Daniel turned slowly, flashlight trembling in his hand. Between the trees, 2 yellow eyes reflected the light back at him. Too high for a bear. Too wide apart for a wolf. "Hello?" he called out, though he immediately regretted it. A low growl rippled through the forest, followed by heavy breathing. Then silence. Daniel backed away toward his truck, but before he could reach it, something moved behind him, fast. He turned just in time to see a tall, dark shape dart between the trees. He jumped into the truck and slammed the door shut. Something slammed against the side hard enough to dent the metal. His flashlight fell to the floor, rolling under the seat. The thing outside circled, sniffing, scratching. Daniel could hear it dragging claws across the glass. It finally stopped. For a few long seconds, nothing moved. Then, with a deep hiss, the creature pressed its face against the driver's window. It wasn't an animal. It had the face of a man, but stretched, skin gray, eyes glowing like dying coals. Daniel started the engine and floored it down the dirt road, gravel spraying behind him. He didn't stop until he reached the ranger station. When other rangers went to check the site the next morning, they found his truck covered in mud and claw marks. The tracks around it led back into the woods, and disappeared at the river's edge. No one camps near Devil's Hollow anymore. Locals say when the fog rolls in, you can still hear the sound of claws scratching against glass. Story 13, The Missing Camper's Tent. In the summer of 2015, 3 college friends, Maya, Luke, and Aaron, planned a weekend camping trip in Oregon's Tillamook Forest. It was supposed to be a simple break from city life, hiking, stargazing, and esmores by the fire. They found a quiet clearing near an old logging trail, miles from the main campground. Luke set up the tents while Maya collected firewood. Erin laughed about how creepy the forest looked at dusk. "Feels like someone's watching," she joked. By nightfall, the forest had gone still. Even the insects were quiet. Around midnight, Erin woke up needing water. She stepped outside her tent and froze. Their campfire was out, and Maya's tent was gone. Not just empty, gone. The ground where it had been was smooth, no drag marks, no footprints, nothing. Luke came out rubbing his eyes. "Maya?" he called. Silence. They searched with flashlights for over an hour but found no sign of her. No broken branches, no trail. Just that eerie emptiness. Finally, they huddled in Luke's tent until dawn. When the ranger team arrived the next morning, they found Maya's backpack hanging from a tree branch a mile away, zipped, clean, untouched. Her phone was still inside, battery dead. The strangest part? The phone's last photo showed her smiling by the fire, and in the background, behind her shoulder, was something standing in the dark. A tall shape, pale face, no eyes. The search lasted 6 days. They found nothing. Years later, hikers still report hearing a woman's voice near the old logging trail, whispering, "I can't find my tent." Story 14, The Forest Service's Secret File. In 2003, Ranger Evelyn Cross transferred to the Shoshone National Forest in Wyoming. During her first week, she was given a stack of old maintenance files to archive in the ranger station's basement. Most were routine, trail repairs, weather logs, visitor reports. But one folder stood out. It was labeled in red ink, for internal review only. No date. No signatures. Just a number, Case 47D. Inside were typed reports describing something the Forest Service had quietly monitored for years, strange disappearances linked to uncharted clearings. Each report included sketches of circles, symbols carved into trees, and a recurring note, "Entry denied beyond perimeter." At first, Evelyn thought it was a prank. But when she asked her supervisor, he went pale and said, "That file shouldn't be here." Forget it. She didn't. That night, curiosity got the better of her. She drove to one of the coordinates listed in the report, deep in the woods, past a road long closed to the public. There, she found an open clearing about 20 yards across. The trees around it were twisted, bark burned black. In the center stood a metal post with a small plaque. The writing was worn, but one line remained readable. "Area sealed under Order 47D, do not enter." Evelyn took a single step forward, and her radio turned on by itself. Through the static came a voice whispering her name. "Evelyn, you shouldn't be here." The next thing she remembered was waking in her truck at sunrise, parked back near the station. The engine was still running. Her watch had stopped at 2:17 a.m. She quit the job 2 weeks later. But before she left, she checked the basement one last time. The red ink folder was gone. When new rangers asked about Case 47D, they were told it never existed. Story 15, The Screaming RV. It was supposed to be the perfect road trip for Ben and Clara Myers, a couple in their late 30s traveling through the Pacific Northwest in a rented RV. They'd always loved ghost stories, but they never expected to live one. Their first few days were peaceful, long drives through pine valleys, coffee at roadside diners, quiet nights under the stars. On the 5th night, they parked near a lake surrounded by dense woods. Around 2 a.m., Clara woke up to a faint crying sound coming from outside. At first she thought it was a baby. Then the cry turned into a long, low scream. Ben got up, opened the window curtain, and saw something moving near the tree line. "Probably an animal," he said, trying to sound calm. But the sound wasn't like any animal they knew, it was human. but distorted, like someone screaming underwater. They decided to leave. As Ben started the engine, the RV lights flickered, then went out completely. The crying grew louder. Then, thud. Something hit the side of the RV. Then again. And again. Like fists pounding metal. Clara grabbed her phone to call for help, but there was no signal. The pounding stopped. Then, from the back of the RV, came a whisper. "Let me in." Ben slowly turned. The rear window was fogged from the inside. A handprint appeared on the glass, on their side. He threw open the door, leaped out, and looked around. No one was there. But when he turned back to the RV, the engine started on its own. The headlights flickered to life, shining straight at him. For a brief moment, he saw a face behind the wheel, his own, but grinning. He yanked Clara out, and they ran into the woods until sunrise. When police found the RV later that morning, it was idling by the lake. Both doors were locked from the inside. No one could explain how. Story 16, Cryptid Highway. There's a lonely stretch of road in Montana locals call Highway 84, but truckers have a different name for it, the Cryptid Highway. For over 40 years, drivers have reported seeing a tall, shadowy figure wandering along the roadside. Some call it the Watcher. Others say it's something worse. One foggy night, Travis Cole, a long-haul trucker, was heading east on that very route. He'd been driving for 14 hours straight when he saw what looked like a person walking on the shoulder, barefoot, in the freezing cold. At first, he slowed down to help, thinking it was a stranded traveler. But when his headlights hit the figure, he slammed on the brakes. It wasn't human. Its arms hung too low. Its skin looked gray and stretched. And when it turned toward him, its face was smooth, no mouth, no eyes. The figure suddenly crouched, then leapt across the road in a single motion, vanishing into the trees. Travis's heart pounded. He grabbed his CB radio, calling out to any nearby truckers. Another voice came through. "You saw it too, didn't you?" The voice belonged to Earl, a driver who'd been on that road for decades. "Don't stop," Earl said. "If you see it once, it follows you." Travis laughed nervously, trying to brush it off. But an hour later, when he stopped for gas, he noticed muddy handprints on his trailer door, large, too wide for a man. Later that night, at a rest stop, Travis fell asleep in his cab. Around 3 a.m., he woke up to the sound of scratching on the side of the truck. He peeked through the curtains and froze. There, standing under the streetlight, was the same gray figure, staring up at him. But this time, it had a face. And it was his own. By morning, Travis's truck was found idling on the roadside, door wide open. He was never found. And to this day, truckers still whisper on the radio about the one who follows. Story 17, The Last Transmission. Ranger Adam Pierce had been stationed at Yosemite National Park for 12 years. He knew every trail, every cave, every emergency code. But one night in 2018, his last radio transmission sent chills through the entire Park Service. It started with a distress call from a group of hikers who reported something huge moving through the woods near their camp. Adam volunteered to check it out. At 1:14 a.m., he radioed. "I see a light ahead. Might be their campfire." A pause. Then static. Then his voice again, quieter. "No, that's not fire. It's eyes. God, there are so many of them." The line went dead. Rescue teams found his truck parked near an old ranger trail, but no sign of him. His flashlight was discovered half a mile in, pointing at a tree. On the bark, carved deep with something sharp, were 3 words. "Stay outside." 2 weeks later, a hiker turned in a damaged radio found near the site. When they replayed the recording, they heard heavy breathing, footsteps running, and Adam whispering. "If anyone finds this, don't look in the trees." The transmission ended with a sound none of the experts could explain, something like wings unfolding, but heavier, wetter. Adam Pierce remains missing. But sometimes, when rangers scan that frequency late at night, they swear they hear him whispering through the static. It's still here. Story 18, Something in the Lake. The Holloway family spent every summer camping beside Mirror Lake in northern Minnesota. It was their tradition, fishing, roasting marshmallows, and watching the water shimmer under the moonlight. But one year, something shimmered back. That evening, 12-year-old Eli noticed ripples in the still water. "Dad, something's swimming," he said. His father, Greg, smiled. "Probably just a fish, buddy." But the ripples grew larger, like waves. And then the lake went completely silent. No frogs, no crickets, no wind. Just stillness. Later that night, Eli woke up to soft sloshing sounds. He looked outside and saw bubbles rising from the center of the lake. Something was surfacing, slow and deliberate. He shook his mom awake, but when she looked, the water was calm again. The next morning, they found deep grooves in the sand near the shore, as if something massive had crawled out of the water and back in. Greg wanted to leave, but his wife insisted it was just a log or animal. They stayed one more night. That decision nearly killed them. At 2 a.m., their camper began shaking. Eli looked out and screamed. Something was pressing against the window. A massive, slimy hand with webbed fingers. Greg grabbed his shotgun and stepped outside. The water churned violently. Then a shape rose, 15 feet tall, glistening in the moonlight, with eyes like black glass. It let out a sound that rattled the air, part roar, part scream. Greg fired once. The creature sank beneath the surface, and the lake went silent again. The next morning, the Holloways left and never returned. When rangers checked the site, they found a single piece of slimy black skin washed ashore, like scales, but thicker. The lab couldn't identify it. They just marked the report. Unknown aquatic specimen. Case closed. Story 19, The Abandoned Research Station. In 1997, two hikers exploring a remote section of the Cascade Mountain stumbled upon something strange, a building that wasn't on any map. It was small, built from metal panels, half hidden under vines. The sign above the door read, "Property of U.S. Forest Service, do not enter." But inside, it wasn't a ranger station. It was a lab. Old computers still hummed. Charts covered in red ink lined the walls, graphs showing wildlife patterns, acoustic frequencies, and one labeled Phase 7, Containment Breach. Then they found the recording logs. The tapes dated back decades. Each had labels like Subject A13 and Night Audio Number 42. When they played one, all they heard was static, until a faint voice whispered, "Don't open the door." Moments later, something slammed from inside the next room. The hikers ran. When they returned with rangers 2 days later, the building was gone. Completely. The trees around it were flattened in a perfect circle, as if something heavy had lifted off the ground. No foundation, no debris. Just bare earth. To this day, pilots report flickering lights over that region at night, moving too slow for aircraft, too high for drones.